You know those lessons you wish people had taught you before? Smallest little lesson. Primer mixes 4 to 1, and then you can dilute it by 1, 2, or 3 parts to that 4 on the primer to get more of a volume, to obviously get it to dry quicker, etc. I tend to do 4 primer, 1 hardener, which is in the cup already, as you can see, and then I do thinners as well at roughly 2 parts, which is fairly, I suppose you can say, fairly diluted. But for me, I don't mind it drying off fairly quickly, because I'm basically putting a coat of primer just so I've got uniformity. I'm a bit OCD on some shit, and it's one of those things, I like everything to look the same. So I'm putting primer over the etch primer in order to get myself a uniform color that I'll then work on with the filler and skimming and all the rest, and then finally another coat of primer over everything. But hardener is in there already. A lesson nobody taught me is when you put the gloopy stuff in first, as in the primer, it then goes bloop up there and you can't necessarily read the numbers. Whereas if you go with the clear liquids first and you add them in, obviously you end up at a different kind of visibility ratio. You can at least see what you're doing, and the wind is pumping around, messing with my camera. So I've got 1 part to 4, so that would give me a 250 ml total. But I'm also going to add in 2 parts, or somewhere just under 2 parts, basically eyeball it, of thinners. So I've got a fairly big surface to do on the inside and the outside of the cab, and I'd rather do a second light sort of dusting coat over if this runs as too evaporated. Then once I've added this at 4 parts to the other 3 parts that I've got, I'll end up with 350 milliliters. So thinners in, so you can see what you're doing. So now we're at 150 ml, and I have this thing about closing the caps constantly. You just don't know which bright spark comes around here. I've already stirred this up and agitated it, so I try to use the same place to pour out. And I'm going to do the unhealthy thing, which is obviously getting it on my fingers. Now, we've got 150 ml, so we want to get to 250, 350 in order to get that ratio right. So the gloopy stuff comes out, and you watch your line grow up to 350. I tend to stop just before 350 because I do this stupid thing that people talk about, which is using my finger to cut off. See, we've got enough, not quite, a little blob more. Now we should have good, along with our hardener and our thinners in there. So I now have approximately 350. Don't forget to shut the tin. I've seen that more than once. People don't shut the tin. This is quite a mess. I tend to do that. Not necessarily clever. You'll see at the end of the ruler how thick, despite me stirring the bottom of this tin, how thick this tends to grow into residue. Right, so that's that. We'll be stirring with that in a moment. Shut my tin. And then get to stirring and get it into the gun and paint. I also tend to put it on a slightly higher pedestal so that I can see what I'm doing. Now, first thing I'm going to do first is clean my hands, because they're a bit of a mess. My roll of precious paper towel. Use some of that first just to get the worst off. And then we'll add some of these thinners. This is old thinners, probably functionally good, but I bought fresh thinners for this job. Now Now at least get my hands somewhat clean. This is horrible stuff. It sticks to you and you look like, I suppose, like a backyard mechanic, which I am in a way. Not that I'm a mechanic or ever been. It's just the way you operate. People can use all sorts of interesting names for the same thing. Some of them I really don't care. Some of them make me laugh. But yeah, I am talking a lot. Why? Because it's Sunday morning. It's about 11:45, I think. No, in fact, it's probably closer to 12 o'clock on the dot. And it's a lovely day out. So now, first of all, shut that again. I'm also going to just clean the top of this thing off because it got a bit mucky around the edge of the tin, where obviously some of the thinners sits. Steel ruler isn't necessarily mandatory, but I have 3 of these, and you buy them at boot fairs for 50p or whatever, so they can lay about. Now this takes a bit of time. Stir, 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 and then eventually when you're ready, you can see it's very gloopy. Stick it in the gun and go and blow it over. I have a problem, but that's my problem, I guess, which is trying to keep stuff clean. Doesn't always work that way. Getting dirty isn't a problem in itself. It's just trying to keep a tidy space so I don't fall over stuff. Every now and again in the videos you'll see me trip over a hose or hear me swear because I'm about to fall on my head, and I don't like doing that. So this is going to take a moment to get to that point. I think that's mixed. Good enough, good enough, good enough. There's still some residue down the bottom there somewhere. I'm just holding on to the cup because you'd really hate to see this flying across the whole of this worktop and turn my welding table into a grey primered kind of surface. Right, so now get this transferred in there. That should be good. And I always take a moment just to put this aside. Make sure it's shut properly. Right, that can just stay there on standby for a moment. Clean up tools. I think it's a good habit. Once again, it's only my opinion. So that's done. I tend to, even though these cups only cost me 30p, they're actually quite resilient. So if you shove some paper down here with thinners, you can actually wipe them out pretty well to the point where you can use them 3 or 4 times. So because I've got more primer work to do tomorrow or the next day, maybe tomorrow I'll be able to get the etched primer on the tailgate. I will actually just put this here, kind of out of sight, not really, but grab some more paper, a bit more thinners. My hands look like that again. Now, most people, especially the pros, will laugh at me for doing this, but I'm sure the pros do run around the streets throwing out handfuls of money everywhere because they got loads. Somebody else is going to pay for it. I paid for this, so may as well keep it clean and reuse it a second or third time when I'm on the same material and on the same job. Now, up to now, I'm only using these readings, so I'm quite happy just making sure that the millimeter section is clean. I'll leave that over there. Clean my hand properly, get out and go and throw some paint at this cab quickly. Right. Grab gun and mask, go and throw paint.